Oh, hello. Okay, so here we are. We're looking at the basics of some text animation in After Effects. Now, if we have a look here at our character palette, we've got the typeface and the font family and the style of type, so thin, bold, whatever, all good. All that stuff. I've set it to full caps, otherwise it's like that. Paragraph, set it to center. Cool. Now, if you want to animate your text, there's a few different ways. When you're just learning After Effects, as you guys will be right now, the most obvious way is to go up to presets and we go into text and there's loads. So you've got a whole load of variations. Some can be useful or at least get you started. Others can be a little squinky, just depends on what they look like. You know, this maybe not so bad. But for the most part, you'll find that many seasoned motion artists won't tend to use them. Some of them can be kind of ridiculous looking. So this one is where they randomly turn into snowflakes. Or asterisks in this case. Red circles, let's see what this one does. It's just based on wiggle, I think. That can be kind of cool for a glitch effect. You know, you could use that somehow. So, again, it's just going through them, working out what you like, what you don't like, and taking it from there. Let's go into the text options. If we hit Control and on the little arrow, Control and click on the little arrow, we'll bring down all our options. So we've got a whole load of different things here. So we won't be looking at this for the most part. This is the transform of the actual full layer of the text is the layer. So we'll go to Animate, Position. So what that's going to do is it's going to drop in a thing called an animator and a range selector for us. And what you will then do, you can delete these. It's just like an animator command, I guess. And you can delete position if you want. And you can change that from position to scale, skew, opacity, anything like that. All the transform properties will go back to position. Position, we'll just do this. We'll push it down a bit. 100 seems to be okay. And these are the three main parameters you're going to be using: start, end, and offset. So let's see what they do. So that's where it's going to start and that's where it's going to end. So generally what you'll do is set your keyframe, set another keyframe, and it's just going to animate over time, a space of 2 seconds. Lovely. Needs a little bit more than that, so let's go into advanced. I'm going to add some opacity to that, so I want it to fade in. Bring the opacity down to 0, and it fades up. So again, what you got to bear in mind that this is the change that you're affecting down here, and this is the change that is happening. Okay, so these are the parameters that you're changing. And notice it's not this position, it's not that opacity. It's these ones which I've brought in from the Add Property panel. And I can do the same for rotation if I want. And again, let's see how this can look. Boom. Not a fan of that myself, but you know, you can see what it can do. Let's make it dafter looking. Yeah, minging. Let's get rid of rotation. We've got a few options on this. So instead of bringing it in letter by letter, we can bring it in word by word. It's looking a bit clunky. So the easing is something that we can change here. So we'll change it with ease high and ease low. So, and actually the shape here is going to be kind of important as well, but ease high is ease in and ease low is ease out. You'd think they would have named it otherwise, but you know, thanks. It's not the way. So this is a string of text. A little smoother. See what that will look like. See, it's a bit more punchier. Boom, boom. Change it to -100 again. Doesn't seem to be doing much. Let's make that 100. Oops, that 100. That's 0. That's turning the smoothness off means it just pow, bang, bang, bang right in. That's a good way to do text animation in time with your voiceover. Now, another way we can look at it is, if you look at it here, this is 14%. I'll change that back to 100. We can also change that to index, which in our case will be the number of words in the sentence. So it says 6. So there's 6 words in that sentence. That's how it's reading it. To be honest, this is often more than enough for text animation. It's not something that needs to be particularly complicated. You got to remember that when you're doing text animations, usually in all practicality, it's a lower third or something that needs to draw attention to something else happening on screen or to reinforce the voiceover. So unless you're doing a strict typographic animation, generally subtle is best. Keep it simple, stupid. KISS, So one other option we can do, and this will bleed into our shape layers bit, but just hit G to bring up the line tool and we'll draw a line. So I'll take my shape layer, reset. So see where it's below my text now. So I'm just going to drag it down a little and I'm going to draw another box or a shape layer. Just by hitting Q, gives me the rectangle tool. So with no layer selected, I'm going to draw a text box. Well, not a text box, just a box. For this, I will turn on the fill. Doesn't matter what it is. So I'll put it above my text layer. Okay. And I will make the text look at this box and take the alpha channel from the box. All right, so I'll just call that matte. So I'm not confusing myself further down the line. Shape layer, just call it line. Lock it. Control and L, Command and L. Okay, so string of text. Let's make it matte. Boom. Okay, so what that is doing, invert that. So this is a string of text. It's going to appear that it's coming out of the line. Now, one cool little trick we can do, we can add trim paths to this, to the line, so the line grows. So start and end. To make it grow from the middle, put the two of them at 50. Lovely. So that is the most basic kind of text animation you could do. So it is kind of a pretty standard effect, but you'd be surprised how often this will get deployed. And so now with the text layer selected, hit G, brings up the pen tool, and I'm just gonna draw something similar to a Big Dipper style roller coaster. Now if I change my text from this is a string of text to a bunch of full stops, I can do something interesting with this. I can apply that to a path again. Okay, I'm going to change my tracking and bring all the letters close together, something like that. I'll change the size of the typeface, and let's go back into our animators. What will we add? Let's add scale. So bring that down to 20. I've got a few different options here for shape. Now shape is how a text effect can be applied to your string of letters or your sentence. So in this case, it's just like pushing a square through everything. So let's see what happens when we hit ramp up, which is actually what I'm looking to achieve straight away. Ramp down will probably go the other way. Triangle, you can see that it's thick here and on both ends, a bit thin in the middle. So it's like a triangle is moving left, right there. Round, smooth. Now to explain how the text animator works, this is a really good visualization technique. Again, pinched from School of Motion. And this is the one we're going to start messing about with. So open up my animator, and I've already added a scale parameter. Okay, so I'll scale that up. You can see that each individual full stop is scaling up by a large amount. But this is what square is. You know, it's a large square chunk being pushed through our string of full stops. It's very, very similar to how MoGraph effectors work in Cinema 4D. Offset will push that left and right. It doesn't loop around, but it does start at 0 and finish at 100%. And if we look at our other options, ramp up, 0, there's no change in scale here, and then it goes up to 100 there. Actually, I might be able to change my offset, my end parameter just by dragging it left and right. Personally, I prefer doing it this way, but your experience may vary. Ramp down, triangle to triangle moving through left and right. And this is also where we can see our ease high, ease low, and the difference that will make. Ramp up is what we want. And let's interesting. Okay. And now let's add a fill color. And that also is being changed by the ramp up, ramp down. So let's try a bit red maybe. Okay. So let's see what happens when we hit ramp up. Ramp up is what we want. And now let's add a fill color. And that also is being changed by the ramp up, ramp down. So now under path options, we have first margin and last margin. So it's more or less where it's going to start and end. Okay, so I'm just going to keyframe between the two. Just push it over there. Easy ease in the keyframes. Let's see how that looks. So that's just a little worm type thing. You can add a few effects to that, of course, such as roughen edges. Oops, roughen edges. You see the difference that's made. And I'm going to apply a choker to that, which will change the alpha channel for me. Generally the sweet spot on this one, again, it depends on your footage, of course, but when you use it with some other effects like this, it can create something really quite cool. So let's have a look. You know, if you throw a few of them in there, and I'll change the mask on that one. Experiment a little. It's rarely perfect procedural animation first time every time. If it is, hey, great, well done. Oh, that's just that. And that's just basically a bunch of full stops on masks, on path. Cool. See, have a look at what else we can do. Okay, so now we're going to move on to shape layers. So we hit Q and it'll give us a choice of one of these guys up here. So for now, we'll just choose rectangle, and I'm just going to draw a rectangle. I'm going to turn off my stroke, hit the Y key. That's going to turn it from a pointer or pen tool, which I'm not pointer there. Y brings, it's called a pan behind tool, or change anchor point in this case. So I'll just drag it over. So now the anchor point is going to be here. Now shape layers are basically vector layers created inside of After Effects. So in this case, what I want is the layer scale to change. So 100%, bring it over there. I'm going to uncheck it because the link, because I just want to change it in X. Make that 0. It's going to grow out from the side. Hit F9. Ease my keyframes. Open that up. So I'll just call that top. I'll shift it up a bit. And another called bottom. So I want this to be smaller. 1070, let's make it half that, so 535. So this is going to be a basic lower third, so it's just going to animate some text in for us, which is something that you're often going to end up doing. And you can use this technique for pretty much anything. So kind of a standard thing, first name, last name. Yeah. Now, first name, last name, let's put that there. Might need to make that a little larger, our top one. Easy to do, just with the scale. Now, depending on your version of After Effects, I've got the most recent one, but I will set the first name, last name alpha matte to be below it, the top. So, boom, animates it in. And the same, this one, you have to turn it back on, whatever layer you want, and you can reuse it many times. It's sort of thing you think they would have done years ago, but they didn't. So, just push them out of it, offset them. Cool. Now that's a basic lower third, you know. It's just how you'd introduce some text. Now let's see what else we can do with shape layers. So create a little quick looping animation on a star, or indeed any other object. So I'm gonna plonk a keyframe in there for position and rotation. I go back, actually bring that up a little higher. And go back to the start of the animation, or the comp, bring it right down. I change my animation rotation to +80. Actually, change my animation. I'm going to change my rotation to -180. So that's all it does. Boom. And then nothing else. Okay, so I'm going to apply a very basic expression in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply this expression to the position and the rotation of my star layer. So I Alt or Option click on the stopwatch icon for position. This brings up the basic expression. Okay, so it's just, instead of 360 by 334, saying transform.position. So this is standard, nothing happens. So I'll just hit delete or backspace or whatever and type out what it says there in giant letters. So LoopOut. And as I start typing, After Effects give me some prompts. So important is the annotation, the capitalization, punctuation, everything like that. Very important within After Effects. So, or JavaScripting, mathematics in general. So just by hitting inverted commas, then I get these options pop up. So let's have a quick look. Have a look at continue. All right, turn off loop out. So text, I don't need that for now. And it will probably just keep going. Yeah. Don't like that, so I'm going to change to something else. Cycle. And we'll see what we get. And that's just the same animation happening over and over. And because the rotation has stopped here. So let's have another look, see what we can do. Offset. Oops. Yeah, I know. Thank you. And it's a bit like continuous, just keeps going. But like I showed you, ping pong is what we want. Yay. That just sends it right back. So I can do the same for rotation. I can use that little trick earlier from copy expression only and paste, and it should go back down again. This, you can see where it's going. Not very interesting. So let's do something with the easing. So selecting the keyframes, go into the graph editor, Now let's have a look. I should go slowly in, so yeah. Right. Another thing we can do with that is I can duplicate it a bunch of times. And we can offset them. And there you've got a cool little animation with minimal amount of keyframes. That's just the start. Expressions can be extremely complicated. So another thing that works with expressions is, so just start with a circle, call it clock face. And we'll add some hands to it. Lock that and I will use the rectangle tool to create a minute hand. Okay, so that state I will change the fill. Something a little darker. And hit the Y tool to bring the anchor point to the center of the composition. Cool. I'll call that minutes. And now make another version of that. Call it hours. And UU brings up my parameters I want to change. I want to change this from 38 to 50. And change that to, say, 250. A bit less, I think. Bring this back past center point. And hit. It's a like thing, so. And then again, use the Y tool to align it on the center of the composition. It can be fiddly. Groovy. Change that to 40 and minutes. I'm going to change to 25. Cool. All right, bring up the rotation for both of them. Okay. So now I'm going to add another layer. Control Alt Y and Shift. Control Shift and Y, and call this expressions. You can call this anything. Expressions works for me. And go to slider control. Now, actually, let's go into our expressions control. There's a bunch of different effects here, all of which are used to control expressions. But slider control is one of the most useful ones. So I'm just going to leave that there, and I can hit return on the keyboard, and it means I can change the name of the slider control. So I'm just going to call it speed. I'll open up my slider control here, okay, in expressions on the timeline. Go into rotation for minutes, and I'm going to hit time times, or asterisk on the keyboard. I'm going to take this pick whip from the minutes layer and link it to the slider layer. So this automatically drops in a bunch of code that says that all of this stuff here, this comp.layer, expressions.effect, speed slider is coming from over here. The expressions layer with the slider control. And I click away from it. And if we hit play, nothing happens. because our speed is set to 0, so it's not going to rotate. So let's hit 100. We'll see what happens. Well, straight away, boom. So I think you can see where this is going. I'm going to add rotation to the hours hand by alt clicking on rotation and then hit time, asterisk, and then open bracket or shift and 9. It gives me the closed bracket as well. So what I'm going to do is drag my pick whip for the expression and drag it over to my slider control. Bang. And then I'm going to hit / to divide 12. And you can see that the hour hand is now moving at the correct speed in relation to the minutes hand. We've done that with exactly 0 keyframes. Now another option might be that instead of using the expressions layer, which we can delete and just breaks our expressions, another option can be to just use keyframes on the minutes hand. Okay, so after 10 seconds, I can do 10 full rotations, for example. Okay, we're not going to see any difference. Cool. And I can parent, using this pick whip here, the rotation of my hours hand, the rotation of my minutes hand. It's going to snap to it straight away, and it's just going to basically parent itself to it. If I open it up, I can put some open brackets there, close brackets, and divide that by 12. That works the same way. Now, they both have pros and cons, but you know, that's obviously what works. And that's about it for today's tutorial. Just went through some very basic intro to text animation, and then shape layers to make a lower third, a couple of expressions, loop out and rotation, basically pick whipping, parenting. But yeah, it's I tend to call this stuff the fiddly stuff, mainly because it all tends to live inside After Effects. But anyway, if you start to pick up the techniques that we've been introduced here and start using that in your own work and build upon it, learn some new tricks and tips, find some other expressions and whatnot, your work will really start to take off. Alright, so hope you all managed to learn something useful in this tutorial. There's more coming, and there's more to watch back over if you feel that way inclined. So I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks.